Welcome to this new training about how to conduct a pre-need appointment. You are a crisis prevention counselor, and this is the art of guiding a family to a peace of mind. So the agenda is pretty much the counselor's journey. We're going to go from the mindset that it's going to make you a winner, a successful counselor, the tools that you need to prepare for prior to the appointment, the conversion of that one lead or appointment into a client, the one pager, which is a roadmap of how to develop that appointment, the digital application, and how to get referrals, but also how to take care of certain objections. You should be able to dismantle the objections before they even appear, but there's a few ones that you still need to learn how to handle those in a very simple way. It is quite normal for all of us to sometimes feel a little bit uncertain, nervous before we start making phone calls to set up appointments for follow-ups, or before we walk into an appointment or a group setting to talk about what we do. It's quite normal. So having the right mindset, it's very important. So I put together a statement that is well articulated to remind us who we are. And I recommend even memorizing this, but if nothing else, just read it before you walk into any appointment, any group settings, or again, before you start making phone calls. That would be my advice. And remember that what we do is not about us. We get compensated for what we do, but it's about the family. It's about helping people. And we also have to remember that not everybody's ready. They might be going through some situations in life and they might not be ready at that moment, but they will maybe in a few weeks, maybe in a few months, or even in a few years. But everybody eventually, it's going to need what we do, what we offer, the protection we offer. And if they don't take it, unfortunately, they will have consequences eventually. So this statement, I recommend for you to read it. If you want to tweak it and have your own flavor, your own taste to it, go ahead and do it. This is a frame that I recommend for you to read again every time you're about to serve people, either on a phone call or at an appointment. And so the mindset and the mission, our cost, your pledge. I am a crisis prevention counselor. My mission is not to sell, but to serve and protect. I am entering this home to help a family navigate in one of life's most difficult journeys before crisis strikes. I will guide them with the same compassion, honesty, and care I will give my own family. They might not see the urgency, but I see the potential storm. My role is to gently help them build a shelter of peace and financial security. Today, I am not an advisor. I am a guardian of their legacy and builder of their peace of mind. Visualizing the outcome for that person or that family you're talking to, either over the phone or at an appointment, I want you to visualize them in these two scenarios. One, they're unprepared, and now they're going through all this chaos, and they're calling you after the fact, totally confused, tired, and overwhelmed, and also unprepared financially to cover all their expenses. And I want you to also see that family totally prepared. They're going through these difficult times, but the difference is that they were ready and they remember you. And you might receive a text, hey, thanks so much for setting this up. This funeral home was great. Everything was so easy. Thanks for doing this. You mean a lot to us. And I'm going to share with your information with all my family members. So you are the one who's going to make the difference. So you are the difference between these two outcomes. Have that in mind, and it's going to make things a lot easier for you when you are at an appointment. Part two is the preparation toolkit. So make sure you have all these things with you all the time. The funeral home price list, the GPLs, and also the CPLs. It's a casket urns price list. Make sure you have at least 3 funeral homes, but if you represent several, just have well organized in your vehicle all these different price lists in your vehicle. So if you need them, you can always go grab a copy. But always be prepared before you show up to the family's home. And then the service type cards that I created for you that shows the different services, even if you already know them by heart, it's always good that you have them with you so you can present them to to the client. And then the pre-filled cheat sheets so that you know the prices for every package and you have it handy. You don't have to just look in the computer and look for the prices and try to do all that when you're in front of the client. You need to have that information pre-done, and it's gonna make you look more professional, and it's gonna save you a ton of time that you can spend just interacting and bonding with the family instead of doing math. Also, crisis prevention checklist, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. And then the one pager, which is your roadmap when you're in front of the client, and always carry some pens, some extra pens. And then the tablet, laptop, obviously, so that you can do the e-apps for the family. So here's just a visual of the things that you need to have with you before you walk into an appointment. And again, that's the general price list, obviously your laptop, or if you use a tablet or some kind of an iPad. And the qualification questionnaire, I have the one that is just for Texas, but I also made some other ones for California, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. In case you need them, you can find them in the library. And then you have also the packages, the service types. You're going to carry those with you, and then the back of it, or just a separate cheat sheets that have all the items and the prices. And then also the proactive checklist for the family to find out what they're missing, what they need, and what they're missing. We can always have a variation of 10 different types of services, but that is overwhelming with the families. And if you do that, what you're going to get out of it is families telling you, oh, that's too much. I need to think about it. And we don't even know what we want yet. So to avoid that, we are just focusing on 6 different services. Three will be on the cremation side and 3 on the burial side. So you have sort of the full service, something in the middle, and the minimum for each side. And so when you're talking to families and they express to you what they want, then you can just pull the one you're looking for. And if you need to do comparison between a full service and sort of in the middle of the road service, then you can bring up the two, look at the icons and tell them, well, this is what this is missing, or this is what you're not going to be getting if you choose option C instead of option A per se. So remember, you're not there to choose for them. You're just presenting the options and let them choose what they want for themselves. So it's very important that you build that rapport in the beginning, and it's in a very casual way. Use your own personality. You don't have to fake anything, just be genuine. If you see something in the house that is interesting, just ask about it. Maybe they have pictures of classic vehicles and you like that, or they have pictures of places they've been to in Cancun or somewhere else in the world, and you love those places, and you can start a conversation there. Some of the things that you can discuss if you're not very outspoken and extrovert, then just talk about the home. Just tell them, hey, this is a pretty quiet neighborhood. It seems nice. And then what a lovely home you have. How long have you been living in this neighborhood? I see family photos. Do you have any children that are living close by? And yeah, thank you for making the time to protect your family. So it kind of started the conversation that way. And then that's going to create a bridge to the one-pager presentation. No matter what, you cannot skip this question. This has to be the first question you ask, the first formal question you ask, that's going to set up the foundation and the structure for you to be able to close this family into being protected. So make sure you don't miss this. And the script is, most people understand how important this is, but they put it off until they face a health crisis or they lose a loved one, and it becomes much harder then. So what got you thinking about taking care of this step now? Okay, this is a first question on your one pager. So that's when you can pull out the page and you can actually write down the answer. But this is very, very important. Don't interrupt them. Just let them talk. And if they say, yeah, we lost a loved one, we lost my sister, my brother, or we had somebody very ill, and we saw what they went through, and I don't want to put my family through that. They're literally closing themselves into the pre-planning or the proactive approach about crisis prevention. So let them discuss why they're interested in doing this. And remember, if for some reason they're not very convinced because they haven't lost anyone lately, they're not going through a health crisis, or anyone they know is going through a health crisis, then that's when you use the time machine that we're going to discuss in a moment, of how you remind them of what happened maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years or more ago, and relive the situation so they can elevate their consciousness for pre-planning. So that's very important. But this question you have to always ask. So this is the main page, and you're literally writing down everything they're saying in this page, and it's going to help you tremendously. Out of almost 5 pages worth of a presentation, we brought everything down to just one page, and we only focused on the important things. Everything you're going to be doing here, what's going to do is eliminate most of the objections and prepare them to plan without a doubt. They'll be ready. So it's very important that you just start going slowly, take your time, but you're asking the questions and you're writing down the answers. And make sure you use those later if you need to. So just remind them that this is not an application. This is just a guide so that you can figure out what they need and how you can help them. And make sure you say that to your clients. So if you already had the names before you met them, then make sure you already have the names on the green portion, which is applicant one can be the husband, the wife, and then the spouse, and the date of birth and ages and all the basic information. And that's all this information. If you already have it pre-done, it's gonna be time that you can now dedicate to listen to them and to put together a package for them instead of asking for the very basics. So the why now, you already asked a question, so you're writing down why they are thinking of doing it now. And how long have you been thinking about this? This is very important too, because they might say, well, we just started thinking about it. And then you need to help them a little bit. This is very important. You need to ask them, have you lost family members, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, friends in the past? And they said, yeah, of course. Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, so does it happen to you the way it happens to me? That when we lose a load, when we think about this, and you say to yourself, I gotta do something. I gotta prepare my family. I gotta protect my loved ones. But then a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, you kind of forget about it, and you don't remember until someone else passes away, and then you go through the same cycles. You want them to recognize that, because now they can say, yeah, actually, you've been thinking about it for decades, for 10 years or 20 years since my mom passed away back in the 90s or early 2000s. And yeah, I guess it's been a while. So later, if they try to tell you we need to think about it, well, you can say, well, you told me you've been thinking about it for 20 years, 25 years. So then you can use their own information respectfully to close them. And you write down who were the losses, a brother, a sister, mom, whoever were the losses. And then you ask a follow-up question to that. And then family agreement issues. Do you know if they had any arguments about who was going to contribute financially, and what were the wishes of their loved one, and how was it? If they said, yeah, they had a lot of issues, some of them didn't want to pay, they still don't talk to each other, there was a big scene there. And then your follow-up comment can be, well, that's why we're here, so that you don't have to go through that. And if they say, well, actually, no, they had everything written down, everything was so easy, everything was so simple, they made it very easy for everybody. Nobody had to put in any money except for some flowers and then some catering service after the fact. Then you tell them, oh, okay, that makes sense. So that's why you're doing this now, so that you're following the good example of your parents or whoever did the pre-need previously. So you can see how no matter what they answer, they're setting up themselves on a way that you can help them protect their own families. And then you kind of throw in the eligibility questions, so you don't have to worry about these later, because remember, what you're doing here is a qualification questionnaire. So any major diagnosis in the last couple of years, and what is it? Are they in hospice, dialysis, oxygen, or anything major um, health issue going on? And you put yes or no. Then you ask this question. The one in red is also very important. Well, all of them are important, but this one too. God forbid, if you had passed away yesterday, how will your family pay anywhere from 15,000 to even over $30,000 in final expenses today? And just stay quiet. Most of the time, they're gonna just throw a quick answer of I don't know. Just stay quiet because I don't know is not an answer. So really, what they're doing is in their mind, they're searching their bank account, their savings account, and anything they can liquidate to have quick access to money, even using credit cards. So their minds are working. So just let them think through it. Don't rush into the next thing. And once they're done sort of trying to figure it out, and they said, well, we really don't have any way to do that. I guess you're here to help us, to let us know how. Or they might say, well, we have a life insurance. Oh, great, good for you. I'm glad you have something like that. So that means that you have life insurance after the fact, and once a family receives their certificates and they file a claim, so they can be assured that a couple of months later they'll receive the money, right? Which is great. I'm glad you have that. So now we just have to worry about how to protect the family right away. Well, you don't have the family doesn't have to wait for those good life insurances you have. And again, congratulations for having that. So now we have to focus on what you need right now. So the answer to what would your family do to cover those $50,000 to $30,000 is still an answer, and you need to help them answer that. From there, you can actually open up the to-do list. So there's a couple of them. You have the graph that has sort of like a pie, and it has three sections. I just revised it to include the legal side of it. I just had the funeral and then the cemetery, and now I just added the third part, which is the basic legal documents. And then, so you can pull out that one or just a straight checklist. It kind of looks like a to-do list, and just ask them. So what are you missing from here? And it's going to ask about the durable power of attorney for assets. It's going to ask about the health directive. It's going to ask about the last will and obviously pre-planned funeral arrangements. So it's going to have all these things in there. And then from there, once you go through that and you tell them, okay, yeah, the legal documents, I can see what I can do. They're usually are over $1,000 for the three, but I can see if I can get them for you at no cost. So you don't have to worry about that. So now let's go back and focus on the pre-need arrangements, because that program is a state regulated program, and it comes with benefits. So you go back to the green portion of this page to talk about benefits. So in this case, Texas. So you're in California, you're in Arkansas, any other state, then you just mention that particular state. But for Texas, for instance, you say, well, one of the many benefits is that the price freezing. So the state obligates the funeral home to freeze the cost just for applying. The moment you applied and you enroll, they have to freeze the cost. Even if you don't pay for it in 10 years, you might not need that long, but even if it takes you that long to cover your funeral arrangement, they still have to freeze the cost. So if by the time you finish paying it, it's double the cost or triple the cost, or by the time you need the services, it's 3-4 times higher. You don't have to worry about that because legally they have to freeze the cost for you. A lot of people don't know that. That's what you tell the client. So balance forgiveness. God forbid there's a premature death, then in that scenario, they have to forgive your balance. Let's say you're a couple of years into it, then something happens to you, and you still owe 80% of it. Then the balance will be forgiven, no obligation to the family. And then the personal wishes are recorded, so there's no questions, there's no arguments between family members. Portability means that if they move to another area or they just simply decide to use a different type of funeral home, they can do that because the money, their funds, are not at the funeral home. The way I like to explain it is that they're kind of kept like escrow. So they're held on this financial institution that also serves as an insurance. It has an insurance feature to it, but the funds are protected, so they can be sent to any funeral home if they were to choose a different one or they were to move to another area. Also, inflation cost is covered, so that you tell them, look, so what happens if you enroll now, and by the time you need the services, it's 3 times higher. Instead of being $10,000, it's close to 30,000 now. So who pays the difference? You tell them the program covers that, not you. So that's one of the greatest benefits. But again, a lot of people don't know about that. And then the funds, again, the funds are protected. So it's state regulated. So the funds are overseen by the government so that they're not misused. And just like any other bank account, the funds are protected. And another benefit is it's just one phone call. When the time comes, they pick up the phone, whatever funeral home they were appointed to or pre-assigned to, they call the funeral home and everything's taken care of. And then no financial abuse to surviving family, meaning they walk into a funeral home not having anything in place, and instead of talking to you, the counselor who is looking out for them, now they're talking to a sales guy with the title of funeral director, whose job is to make sure that the funeral home makes as much money as possible, right? And if they have one of those final expense insurance, try to keep as much as they can off of that policy. So you have to present those scenarios to them. And especially those that are very well educated, very smart, very knowledgeable, you tell them, look, when the time comes, unfortunately, all that knowledge is not going to be available for the family to help themselves on pre-planning because you're not going to be there. So having this done now, it's going to eliminate any possible financial abuse from any of these funeral homes or other financial institutions. So that's the first part. Then you move on to the next one, the second, number 2 in green. And then this is where you ask, so how you thought of what you want for yourself? Do you want the typical? When you into a funeral home, they have a service, they pay the respects to that friend or to that family member, and then there's a message, some memories, some pictures are displayed, and then the families and friends have the last opportunity to view you and say their last goodbyes. Is that kind of what you're looking for? And so that's the way to describe a traditional service. And you're going to hear, families that are very family oriented, they're going to say, yeah, that's what I want. Yeah. And then so we said, okay. And then burial after the fact. And some will say, no, I want to be cremated. So now you're talking about 2 traditional services, one for burial or one for cremation. So depending on what they want, then you can pull out the cards and tell them, okay, so no problem. So I'll make sure that all these things are covered. And you can go item by item on your service types cards so they know all the things that are going to be covered. And it's a way to justify the cost. That's very important. I know this slide is taking us the longest, but it's important because this is where we're going to spend most of the time when you're with a client. So based on what they say, then you just check the box. Now we're in the blue section, so part number 2, and you just check the box of the type of service they want. Now by then, remember, you already have the cheat sheets pre-done, so you already know the cost. So when you go to section 3, then you can just write down the service amount. So let's say they wanted service A and the spouse wanted service B. So you check the 2 boxes and then you put the amount. And if they wanted a particular casket, then you put the amount for the casket, and then the urn for the spouse, any cash advances items, then you write down the amounts in there. And again, cash advance items, all those items, you already have them on your cheat sheets. So it's just a matter of bringing them up here and to this page. So that's it. And then from there, you check on your calculator, your NGL calculator, and see based on that amount, based on that protection they need, then what will be the minimum monthly? So what you tell them is, look, because of your age, you're 67 years old, and sir, you're 69 years old, it's likely they'll qualify you for up to 10 years. My suggestion is to do what most people do. They try to pay between 3 and 5, but they're giving you up to 10. So if you get the 10, you have a minimum commitment. Let's say it was $127 for one and maybe 138 for the other. Those will be the minimum, but you can always put in more if you need to, and you don't have to go with 10 years. In fact, we don't recommend it because there's a cost, not the first year, but after that, there's a cost for insuring your balance. And although it's a small, but over the period of 10 years, it can accumulate to a lot. And I don't want you to pay more than necessary. So just keep it down to the minimum. Only you know your finances, but this will be the minimum. And that could be the 128, 130, 135, whatever the case might be. And then you can tell them if you wanted to do it in 5 years, then it's more like $200 and 240. And if you want to do it in 3 years, then it's going to be close to $300. So whatever the case might be. So my suggestion is always start with a minimum commitment, but then pay it faster, then have a larger commitment, and then run yourself into a situation if you have any financial unexpected situations. So that's how I'll present this bottom portion here. The whole concept of the time travel is for people that don't feel the sense of urgency. And I want to make sure that you have it well rooted into your mind and you know how to use it. Even bring up some of the experiences you had personally or with other clients so that you can emphasize the importance of pre-planning. So the idea of the time travel is that they're right now in the present feeling that they don't have an urgency for pre-planning because nothing bad is happening, right? At the moment. Again, no sense of urgency. So what you do is you take them to the past and you ask them about experiences they had with a loved one, friend that passed away, and how uh, chaotic it was and how difficult it was for the family. So you take them through that, and so they relive those experiences, and then gently you take them to the future. So you travel now to the future. The future could be a year, can be 10 years, 20, nobody knows, right? So whatever that future is, maybe that future is 2050, the year 2050, but let's say in that year. Now, if they are seeing themselves already, unfortunately, in a casket, God forbid, right? They're seeing themselves there, and in the family, totally confused, going through this motion to these difficult times, and they don't know what to do. Then how would the family handle all this? And then so you kind of let them settle, and answer those questions, right? So that's the purpose of taking them to the future. So they already relive the experiences from the past. Now they're seeing themselves in the situation in the future. The future, it's coming no matter what. We just don't know how far off the curve we are off, but we're all getting there. And then you bring them back to the present. Then you tell them, okay, so let's come back to the present. So the good thing is we're not in that situation. We can still solve this problem. If you were to call me 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and you let me know, hey, they just find out that I have stage 4 cancer, or my spouse got diagnosed with dementia or something else that is very serious, I need your help. Then we're limited. We know that they're going to be graded and they're not going to be protected day one like they could be protected right now. So that's what you're doing here. So just keep that in mind. I use the time travel because you're always going to just remember the Back to the Future and remember that vehicle. So you're traveling back and forth. And if you have that in mind, it will be easier for you to explain that to the family in case they need a little bit more convincing. Okay, so now you have the pie, the essential final arrangements. And this is the one I just revised for you to put everything together and make it a little easier. Most people are visual. If they see the pie, they see the things, and they don't have to force themselves to picture everything on their minds and get tired. They can actually see the pie right there, and they see all the slices, and and they can easily remember what you're talking about because they're seeing that. So there's three different areas. You're looking at, again, the funeral services, which is all the upper portion, although that includes funeral services on the upper left. And then you have, at the top, you have essential merchandise that you can read on your own, right? The casket urns. And then miscellaneous, the clergy, obituary, register book. And then you have government fees, that's in the upper right, which is the disposition permit, death certificates, and in some instances taxes. Here in Texas, we don't have that, but it's always good to have that as an allowance, and they can always use that money somewhere else. Okay, so we're not charging taxes; it's just an allowance. But anyway, so that's the upper portion, that everything that takes place inside the funeral home, and then you have the bottom left, which is the cemetery arrangements. And there you have the cemetery plot, the grave liner or cement vault. You have the interment fees or opening and closing fees, and the headstone and the engraving of the names. If they're going to be cremated, they can always have their space in the ground, or if they have a mausoleum, then probably the mausoleum. But these are other expenses that they need to look into. And then on the right, you have just four of the most important documents that they need to have. So now they're looking at the full pie, but right now you're just focusing on one thing at a time, and that one thing that you're doing now is doing the pre-need arrangements. So you can easily check the boxes of the things they need based on the services that they're selecting. If they want a 2-day service or just a 1-day service, and you can kind of check the boxes. Or if they say, no, I just want a direct cremation, I don't want any type of services or anything like that. So you still need to check some boxes, because again, they think that they're just going to be placed inside the crematory and that's it. They forget that they need transportation from the place of passing to the funeral home. They need refrigeration. They need the care of the remains. They need the funeral director to orchestrate things, the staff to handle death certificates and permits, and orchestrate with the crematory and then transportation to the crematory. They need a box for cremation. They need an urn after the fact. So there's a lot of stuff that had to take place, and we need to educate them so they don't just think, oh, just put them inside the oven and scrub the ashes and put them inside of a bag. We need to educate them. Sometimes they try to be funny about it, but this is a reality. So this is a very good form. I've used it for many years, and people really liked it because again, they can visualize the whole spectrum. Once you get to the digital application, this is going to be the easiest part, because literally, what are you asking for? You're just asking for their legal name. You always ask for their IDs if they have them handy. It's very important. That way you don't make any mistakes and you can double check. So there's not Bob, it's actually Robert, right? Whatever the case might be. And especially if you're in an area that you have a lot of Hispanics, you're going to see a lot of people that you call themselves Joe, but when you look at their ID, it's actually Jose. So you want to make sure you're writing it down right. So when you get into the application, it's just basically their personal information, date of birth, also their social security number, their address, all very basic. You don't need to think much about that. Just ask the very basic information. And because you pre-done the services, you already have the packages in the system, then you just select the package. And we're going to have another video for that, but let's say you're using Mission Funeral Home in Austin, in South Austin, then you can name the package however you want, but you can have, for Mission, you can have MS, which is Mission South, as a way to remember what that is, and then TS, traditional service, or TB, traditional burial. However you want to name it, so that when you're with a client, you know what to look for. You just select that one, and it'll populate everything for you. If you need to make adjustments, you make adjustments, but most of the time, it's just going to be the package the way you already preset it. So that's why it's important. I'm not going to spend too much time in these slides, but this is the importance of having everything pre-done in the system. So when it comes to the close, remember, you are not the funeral home. you're not collecting a check from them to pay for the funeral services. You're there protecting them for that amount. So therefore, that's a benefit. So the total benefit that we need here, let's say, is $10,500 for you, and then maybe $8,000 for the spouse, because she wanted cremation. And then, so this is the protection we want. So altogether, we need a protection of $18,500, right? And then, so then you said, okay, so we're going to send the application, and upon approval, the minimum contribution, it's going to be this 128 and then this 135 each upon approval. Right now, we're just sending in the application. You're not paying me anything. You only pay for your own arrangement upon approval. That's the easy transition. I never have any issues with that. So then you ask them, so which bank do you bank with? And you use, and then they might say, oh, I use Chase, or I use Navy Federal. Okay, and what's the routing number? And what's the account number? As a matter of fact, you just get the numbers, put them in, and it's very simple. Don't think too much about it. Just move forward and protect them, and then just go from there. When it comes to referrals, most counselors, they're a little embarrassed about asking for referrals. And there's no reason for that. There's a way to ask for referrals. You can use what I have here, and it works. I'm going to give you what I used. And I suggest that you use your own flavor, your own words, put together your own statement and how you're going to ask for referrals. But if you want to use the one I used, that one, it's been very successful for me. I want you to keep one thing in mind. Every time you go into a new home, you didn't know this family prior. It was a referral from a funeral home, from a friend, someone else. But you don't know the family. Know that you're entering a social circle. And there's a study that says that all of us know at least 250 people. There's actually a book that talks about that. And most of us would think, I don't know 250 people, but there's actually a formula that if you follow it, you actually know even more than 250, but in average, that's what it is. So when you walk into this family's home, you're actually entering a network of people. So not asking for referrals and not making that family a champion for you, that could be a big mistake, because someone else is going to serve those families and you're going to miss it. So what do I use? So what I tell people is, look, I congratulate you for being so proactive in protecting your family. So now that you've done this, I want you to think about something. I know you probably have about 5,000 or 10,000 contacts in your phone, but out of those thousands of contacts or hundreds of contacts, there's a few of them that if they were to call you and say, I'm sorry to bother you, but we just lost mom, dad, husband, wife. We're going through a very difficult time, and I'm very embarrassed to ask, but we're setting up a GoFundMe page. Anything you can help us with, it will be great. And these are the kind of people that you feel compelled to help because they mean something to you. They're friendship, they're family members, people that you know and appreciate. And you're willing to take out your wallet and pull out a couple of $100, maybe $500, and help out in any way you can because they're important to you. So who are these people that in your behalf, we can send them this information so they are prepared, so that later you don't have to pull out your money to help them. You can teach them how to be proactive, just like you are being proactive right now. And in your behalf, we can also give them over $1,000 worth of these basic legal documents that they can take advantage of. Now, if they don't use it, if they don't take advantage of that, then later if they call you and say, I need your help, you say, well, I sent you that help, but you didn't take it. You didn't take advantage of it. Now, I can probably do $50, but I send them that. I send that information to you because I knew that if something happened, I wouldn't be able to help you. And I'm sorry you're going through that, and I'm going to do everything I can. But who are those people? I know you probably have a lot of them, but let's just focus on 10 right now. And we're going to take care of those 10, and maybe in a month or so, then we'll look at maybe another 5 or another 10, and little by little, we can help the people that you care for. So that's one way that you can successfully get leads every time. Part 7 is just a bonus, and this is navigating through objections. You pretty much already eliminated the objections. In fact, the client eliminated the objections because in the beginning, they told you why they wanted a pre-plan. and all the circumstances and why they don't want to put the family through situations, right? So the philosophy and objections is that objection is not a no, it's just a question you have an answer, and it shows us where the client needs more guidance. That's pretty much all it is. So here are three of the most common ones and how I approach them, and these are my suggestions. So I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. You get that a lot. So the quick answer to that is, oh great, that's perfect, because I can't help people who are planning on dying. That means it's too late. People that come to us because they're planning on dying in the near future because of a health crisis they're going through or their loved one is going through, then it's a little too late. We're helping people who are not planning on dying. That's who we focus on. And I want to, but I don't have the funds right now. Okay, so yeah, so you want a traditional service, but you cannot afford it right now. Just so you know, you're not the only one. There's a lot of people like yourself that are in that same situation. So what they do, and what most people do when they're in that situation that they want a traditional service, they just can't afford it at the moment, they go with a very minimum. So instead of having a 2-day traditional burial service, they get the immediate burial to start with. So they have the frame, they have the basics covered, and then later they can add more things to it, right? So that's one way you can do it. And if they wanted cremation, they said, yeah, that's quite a lot for us right now because we have other commitments. Okay, that's totally understandable. You repeat the same thing, and then you say, well, what people do in your scenario, which is quite common right now with the economy, they get at least the direct cremation, and then later you can add the services and other things. So for the direct cremation, it's only $28 a month or $25 a month, whatever the case might be. So you at least get that, and yes, later you can get them to upgrade into a different service, and you also get the referrals, of course. And then I don't know what I want, and when people say I really don't know what I want, I need to think about it. Oh, perfect. You know what? You're not the only one. Most people don't know what they want. This is not a thing that you're thinking about all the time. And even if you knew what you wanted right now, you might change your mind later. That's totally fine, right? Thank God you're not going anywhere anytime soon. And then, so what people do, again, because it's a very common situation, what most people do in your scenario is they just get the basic traditional, and later they can upgrade, add another day of service, or they can downgrade a little bit, but you're at least covered for all the essentials. That's what most people do. And at any time when you want to make changes, just let me know and I'll help you change it. It's no big deal. The important thing right now is you're protected for all the essentials. So let's get you started with the basic traditional. So we're now at the end of our presentation. I hope you enjoyed. And just remember, every family is special, and dealing with final arrangements is a reality that hits us, and it's hard for all of us. We might get used to talking about death and funerals and arrangements and situations like this all the time, but not the rest of the people out there. They're not exposed to the things that we get to experience every day. So let us remind ourselves every day before we make phone calls, before we meet with anyone, about the mindset, our mission, and why we're doing what we're doing, and remind ourselves to be gentle, to be kind and compassionate with people. And I hope you enjoy this. These are many years of experience put together in less than an hour, or 45 minutes or so, and also the decades of mentorship from people that are already retired who took the time to also teach me of how to help people successfully and doing it the right way.